Hi, I'm Steve Gaynor, and welcome to Everything Cinematography. Today we're going to talk about the Bell & Howell 2709B. The Bell & Howell 2709B camera was invented in 1912. Now, the Bell & Howell company out of Chicago, Illinois, made 8 original Bell & Howell cameras, wood-bodied cameras. And then number 9 was an aluminum-bodied 2709B with an amazing amount of modifications and advancements in cinematographic art. The first major jump that you can notice is that it has a 4-lens turret. Let's turn this around so you can see it a little better. There we go. It's really easy to change the lenses. All you have to do is pull this stopper here and the lenses spin on demand. Boom. Second thing that they came up with was the movement. Now, the movement in the Bell & Howell 2709 camera was the best ever invented. You see, they came up with the idea of having registration pins built into the movement, and as the film advanced, it was pushed onto the pins. So there was absolutely no room for the camera, for the film to lose registration or to flutter and wow. To prove how fantastic and bulletproof these cameras are, these were used in optical stands all the way up into the early 2000s, before digital completely took over visual effects. These cameras were amazing. The Bell & Howell's Unit Eye shuttle was a miracle. This is the sound of a Bell & Howell 2709. So with the advent of the 4-lens turret, the Unit Eye shuttle, and the fact that the camera is made of metal and wouldn't be eaten by bugs if you went into the jungle, this camera really took over the motion picture industry. Now, as you can see, it also has iris rods with a Matbox on the front. And the reason they're called iris rods is very early there would be an iris, a vignetting iris that was put out in front of the lens. So that name stuck around. Now, here's the Matbox, and let's talk about if you wanted to change lenses. And this is really what brought about the demise of the camera. You see, the camera is designed with a dovetail on the bottom, and the tripod head has a receiving dovetail on the top. So if you wanted to change a lens, or if you wanted to change your field of view, you would simply rotate the turret until the lens was on that side of the camera. Then you would slide the camera over on the dovetail so that this is where you would view, where the film had been. You would come here, look through this tube, focus, frame, come back over here, move the taking lens back in front of the film, slide the camera back over, and pull the Matbox back. There are a lot of people that photographed their Matboxes because they were in a hurry. So that was one of the primary things that brought about the discussion about what can we do in order to get rid of all of these steps. You know, when you have multiple steps in a process and you're under pressure, which very often cinematographers are, there's room for error, right? And so the Bell & Howell camera fell prey to these design flaws when the Mitchell standard camera with its rack over base came in and completely obliterated the use of these cameras. By the time sound had come in, the Bell & Howell cameras were practically non-existent, and the Mitchell cameras had taken over. So all cameras have a history, and this one in particular has a crazy history, okay? So in 1924, Alexander Penrod purchased this camera and took it on an Arctic expedition. While he was up in the Arctic, the big wooden ship they were traveling on became frozen in the ice. He hopped off with the camera as they began blasting the ice to free the ship, and either a piece of the ship or a piece of ice hit poor Alexander in the head as he was cranking, and that was the end of Alexander Penrod. Okay, so some of the cool features of this camera are adjustable shutter angle, a frame counter. This is where you would insert hard mats for effect shots. And here is the prismatic viewing finder that you would look through in order to focus and frame the lens. So in order to perform a dissolve inside the camera, you turn this and the shutter closes. Then you can roll the film back and go the opposite direction and perform a lap dissolve inside the camera. There's also a film punch. That's how you would be frame accurate. So if you were going to do a dissolve or a special effect in the camera, you would punch your first frame. Then your assistant would be able to wind the film back and get you on that very frame to start the second part of that shot. And this is how you tilt. This is the 2709 Viewfinder, or at least one style of them. This parallax viewfinder allowed you to follow someone, the actor, presumably, as you're panning and tilting. What makes this a great advantage over the earlier viewfinders like the Pathé viewfinder is the fact that it could focus. Not only could it focus, you could put a hard mat for the various lenses. So if you have a 50 millimeter, you'd have a cutout for 50. If you had a 25 millimeter, you'd have a nice wide one. What was a disadvantage with this, and where the Mitchell camera absolutely crushed it, is that Tony Gaudio ASC, one of our members, developed a prism system in here that would write the image. For you see, this is just a lens and a ground glass. So much like a view camera, the image is upside down. With an upside down image, if you pan right, you go left. If you pan left, you go right. It's a problem. But since these guys didn't know about that, they hadn't seen the prism viewfinder, they were just happy to have something to follow the actors around with. So here in the slot, you could insert a hard mat for the various focal length lenses. Let's look at the inside of the camera. The film travels down and around this capstan and up in a Latham loop and through the unit eye shuttle here. Now this unit eye shuttle is really the magic of this camera. It has absolute registration. The registration pins are fixed on the movement, so as the film comes down, it's pushed onto the pins, and there's no way that it can move. Here we go. Let's watch it crank. Hey, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and also ring the bell. That'll let you know when brand new episodes of Everything Cinematography are coming your way. So while the Bell & Howell 2709 was a major achievement in cinematography, it was doomed from the start because of all the steps that you had to go through in order to use the camera. The Mitchell camera was just so much simpler, it took over. So, coming soon, we're going to look at the BNC number 2 that Greg Tolan used to shoot Citizen Kane and do a deep dive with my friend Roy Wagner ASC. And also, we're going to have a sit-down interview with Richard Edlund ASC, the cinematographer, multi-Academy Award-winning cinematographer from the first 3 Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark. See you soon. So you would turn the turret to get the lens that you wanted to use. Then come to this side of the camera and look through this viewing tube in order to frame. Oh, I blew it. Okay, let's do that again. I left out a step. That's why the camera died. All those steps that you had to take in order to look through the lens were man, I'm sucking butt. Vanquished. I don't like that word. Okay.